Really, really tough game. The Green Bay Packers go to Denver and they lose to the Denver Broncos 34 to 26. Really tough game at Mile High, whatever they call that stadium. But the Packers looked decent in the first half, but things turned south in the second half. So many injuries you had. When Zach Tom got injured, that made things tough for the offense for protection of Jordan Love. And then Christian Watson, at that moment of the game, I thought that it was really not a great idea to throw that long pass, because if you had thrown just short passes and stuck with the running game, this game could have been different. Of course, it's good to throw the long pass if that receiver is wide open, but Christian Watson was clearly not wide open in that game, in that moment. So the Packers lose Zach Tom, Christian Watson, Quay Walker for injuries. I don't know how serious those injuries are, but the major injury was Micha Parsons, okay? Micha Parsons had an ACL tear of some sort. Not sure how long he will be out for, but most likely out for the season. So this changes the whole dynamic of this football team on defense. Now, is the Packers season completely over? No. As long as the Packers can figure it out on their freaking offensive line, I think this team could still make it to the playoffs and excel in the playoffs, because towards the fourth quarter of this game, there was so much pressure on Jordan Love because of the changes at the offensive line due to the injury of Zach Tom that kind of changed everything, made things really tough and difficult to throw that football. Now, Christian Watson, he was out of the game, but maybe he will be back. It's looking like it's not a shoulder injury, it's a chest injury, but the real thing is just how long will he be out for? Will he be able to play next week? Will he be able to play in a couple weeks? This Packers-Bears game is going to look really, really difficult for the Packers with all these injuries. Packers may or may not be able to beat the Bears, but the Packers will have to win at least the next 2 out of 3 games, I believe, to make a playoff spot. So with this loss, the Packers drop from the 2nd seed all the way down to the 7th seed. That's crazy. You still got some other teams out there that are fighting for a playoff spot. The Lions lost to the Rams, but they're still in it. But overall, the Packers, they worked their hearts out in this game, okay? Josh Jacobs was looking great. He was kind of questionable during the week. Emmanuel Wilson was there, but he was sick, so he didn't really have that many snaps. He had 2 carries for 1.3 yards. Just overall, really tough game to watch when you see your team lose like that, in that kind of way, in that kind of fashion, of all those injuries that kind of affects the outcome of the entire game. Matthew Golden had some key catches in this game for a total of 55 yards. Jayden Reed had 55 yards. Luke Musgrave had some drops. There's some drops in this game that kind of made it tough, but some of these passes weren't exactly on target. You got to understand that when you're playing in Colorado, you have that high elevation that kind of takes things to a different kind of mode when playing football. So the Packers have never won a football game in Denver since Brett Favre. So that means that Aaron Rodgers has never won a football game in Denver. And the Packers were undefeated wearing their winter warning uniforms until this game. Josh Jacobs was 8-0 against the Denver Broncos until this game. So it's very, tough to see this. Another thing that I didn't like was when Micha Parsons got injured, Bo Nix was kind of like staring down Micha Parsons. Now that is, that's the ultimate disrespect right there, man. And the officiating wasn't that good, I would say, on both sides of the football here. There was a time frame I remember which Dontavian Wicks was flipped around during a key moment of the game, and there was no flag called. Micah Parsons was held quite a bit. They finally called one hold on Micah Parsons, but now, Micah Parsons is not going to play for the remainder of the season. So who knows what this team will look like moving forward. Hopefully they can figure it out on the line of scrimmage, on the offensive line. Hopefully, maybe defensive line will be fine without Micah Parsons, but really was nice and exciting to see Micha Parsons on this football team for this season. And I hope that he recovers nicely, heals fast, so he can go after those quarterbacks and hunt them down again. So the Packers now have to go to Chicago, and Chicago won their game today. So the Chicago Bears are in first place of the NFC North. They are making it They made this game a Saturday night football game, 8:20 p.m. Eastern time zone in Chicago. Can the Packers beat Chicago Bears without Micah Parsons? That's the question. Can the Packers figure it out and sustain and heal up for this game and make an impact and win this football game? Just only time will tell how the status will be for the Packers as regards to injuries. And Jordan Love, he didn't really have that good of a game in this game. He was sacked 3 times. He had 1 touchdown pass, and it was to Josh Jacobs. And 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions. That means that the ball wasn't exactly on target. The Packers are not used to playing in this kind of elevation, and I'm sure that it's a common thing for most teams that play in Denver. Broncos, on the other hand, they had to go for it on 4th down quite a bit. And it seems like every time the Packers go up against a team that beats the Packers, they always go for it on 4th down and some way, somehow make those completions on 4th down most of the time. The Broncos were 2 for 4 on 4th down. So that means the Packers stopped them 2 out of those 4 times. The Packers went for it on 4th down 3 times and only were able to complete it once. But overall, this was a very scary game to see so many injuries. I think that the Packers can still make it to the playoffs and make an impact, but it all comes down to coaching. It all comes down to how do the Packers respond based on what had happened in this game. 3 games left in the season. Let's see what happens. Hopefully the Packers are all good here. Make an impact against the Bears. Beat up on the Ravens. And I believe they have to go up against the Vikings. And that will probably be the Vikings Super Bowl. Where do the Packers stand at that moment in time? Who knows? But that's all I got to say. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe buttons. And pray for the injuries and the healing of this team. And go Pack Go all day.